All right, let's go into all the headlines and more with my panel, senior political reporter Trudy McIntosh and senior reporter 2, Carolyn Marcus. Well, day one, she's not even been in the job, Trudy, for 24 hours. And already we've got Susan Lee's leadership being questioned, not by anyone here. We're talking about the Liberal Party's vice president. I might say also a moderate in Fiona Scott. Have a look at this.
How long do you give her?
I don't know. I mean, a day's a long time in politics, Carl, so...
That's not exactly a ringing endorsement.
Not much confidence there.
Well, you know, it could be a day. It won't be a day, I'm being cheeky. But, I mean, look, you don't know what the political tides will bring.
Now, Trudy, she later tried to walk back those comments, but I tell you what, very, very untidy.
Yeah, it's not the walk back that's going to get all the attention, is it? It's the original comments. It's one of those things when it comes out of your mouth, I imagine if you're Fiona Scott, the entire day you've thought, I just should not have said that at all. It's a stupid thing to say, I'd have to say, pretty early on in the first female leader of the Liberal Party. As you say, she's from the same faction, notionally supports Susan Lee. She's gone on to say that publicly, but you can't take back what you said in jest on the Today Show. A lesson probably for a lot of people.
And Caroline, of course, we remember Fiona Scott, she lost her seat in Penrith. I just think this is not helpful at all. The Liberal Party's got to pull together, particularly, I have to say, as a current vice president of the party federally, she also deserves her share of blame for the result 2 weeks ago.
Well, I think that's fair as well, and she wouldn't really be able to argue with that. Look, I get on with Fiona Scott really well. Haven't spoken to her for some time. I think this was a real misstep, and she realised she'd put her foot in her mouth. It was probably meant to be a joke, and she did say that. However, there's usually a kernel of truth in jokes, aren't there? And I do get the sense that a lot of people, whether it's in the party or out of it, do feel like perhaps Susan Lee is a placeholder in this or has been appointed because she is a woman, and that's what so much of the criticism of the party has been about. Whether it's true or not, you can't escape the perception that there's a bit of a token woman feel about this this appointment, this vote in for her, and that there's more serious contenders in the long term as potential Prime Minister material, like Andrew Hastie, like Jacinta Price, like even Josh Frydenberg if he returns. So whatever it's true or not true, I think that is the perception out there for a lot of people, but certainly very unhelpful for Fiona Scott to maybe point that out.
Yeah, look, I'll be pretty blunt here. She's been in the parliament for 24 years. Most punters wouldn't have an idea who she is. I mean, most journalists I'm listening to them don't know whether to call her Susan Lee or Susan Lay. I mean, such is her cut through in that time. Now, she is a placeholder. Her challenge is to demonstrate as she hits the ground, as she goes through the work with colleagues on rebuilding and policy review work, her job's to show that she isn't a placeholder, that she can be there for the longer term, that she can go to the next election, that she can have a good showing and be there potentially for a second term and win at a second election. But she's got people like Andrew Hastie on her tails. I mean, he ruled himself out, Trudy, very early on, didn't he? But he's done a podcast and, you know, fair enough. He's been pretty open about his ambitions. Have a listen.
I'd be foolish to say I don't have a desire to lead. I do have a desire to lead, but the timing was all out for personal reasons.
I mean, no one in the lower house would rule out an ambition to lead Trudy, but he's smart. He's realised to go now after such a smashing, comprehensive loss, not the right time.
And I actually rated too, Peter, his reason. I've listened to a lot of that podcast. A very interesting discussion with Andrew Hastie. He talks about his 3 young kids and the long commute from WA. I think that's noble to say, as a father, you want to actually spend formative time with your young kids. But he also goes on to say, Peter, that it's important that MPs like him actually determine what the problem is before he put his hand up to lead. He says and spoke about young voters who he says are activist voters, but he says he understands why, but because they feel so frustrated with the system. He says the Liberal Party needs to find a way to address the central challenge of home ownership. I think important to put your hand up and say, yes, I have ambition, but ultimately as a party, we all need to diagnose the problem before we are able to get out of it. I thought fascinating discussion.